Hi, I'm Yaakov Katz, and welcome to another episode of the Jewish People's Podcast by JPPI. This weekend, on Friday, it seems, a new round of talks will take place between the United States and the Iranians. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Iranian Foreign Minister Arakci will gather together, it looks like as of now, in Turkey, but the Iranians are trying to push the talks to Oman for discussions that could lead maybe to an end of the standoff, the impasse, the buildup of the Great Armada, this amazing American military presence that's currently in the region with the threat of using military force against Iran, and talks that could lead maybe to a new nuclear deal, or maybe to a deal that also includes restrictions on ballistic missiles and on Iran's support to proxies, something that Israelis would like to see. But what about the Iranians themselves? Those same brave tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who took to the streets, tens of thousands maybe, whose lives were lost, definitely thrown into prisons and wounded, who were fighting for freedom, to break away from the hold of this radical, oppressive Islamic regime led by the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Where are they? What do they want? Who's representing them in those talks that might be held as soon as this weekend? My guest on today's episode is Marjan Keypour Greenblatt. Marjan is the founder and director of the Alliance for Rights of All Minorities. It's an international network of activists working to advance human rights in Iran. I met Marjan in November when we sat together on a panel at the General Assembly of the Jewish Federations where we discussed Iran together with some other great panelists. But I got to know her and to see her great expertise and insight when it comes to Iran, her country of birth, a place where she left at the age of 14, and as she tells us, used to dream of returning to, but now with the events of the last month, doesn't really have time for dreaming, but more time for great concern over what is happening to her birthplace and to a country that she still does love. You want to hear what Marjan has to say about the prospect of these talks and how they'll play out, what they might lead to, what they might not, what the Iranian people want. And we also go into a bit of where are the Jews of Iran and how do they feel and what have they been doing ever since the 12-day war in June, definitely since the outbreak of protests just a few weeks ago. Stay with us. Marjan, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Yaakov. Thank you so much for your invitation.
So, there's obviously a lot going on when it comes to Iran. The big news of the week is, of course, the talks that seem to, or scheduled at least, to be starting over the weekend, I think on Friday in Ankara, together with the foreign minister of Iran, the special envoys of the U.S. President, Witkoff, Kushner, and maybe the representation or representatives of other Arab countries. Still, that standoff, though, is existing in the Middle East and is still there. The Great Armada and the ships are still in the region. And every day, at least here in Israel, I think a little less in America, but definitely here in Israel, the question is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? And what will happen? But I wanted to talk to you because I wanted to get a feel of, firstly, what's happening on the ground in Iran as we speak, right? It seems, at least from an outside view, that the protests have pretty much died out. They're not at the intensity of what they were definitely for the first few weeks. It seems almost, at least to me, that the regime, for the most part, might have won this round against the protests. How do you see it?
So there are many things to address in this opening conversation. And what I can tell you is that there is, I think, given all this levels of confusion and activity between the Armada and the negotiations, between the conflicting messages about war or peace or diplomacy or obliteration, between all of these things, there is a significant amount of anxiety and confusion that is strongly felt by the Iranian people. I know that President Trump is very extremely skilled at keeping his adversaries on their toes to the point that they don't know what's going to be happening next. But what is happening with respect to the Iranian people as a result of all of these conflicting activities is a significant level of anxiety, amplified by the fact that the people are also suffering from an unprecedented level of pain and loss and fear that has been put on them. The mass killings that took place on the evenings of January 8th and January 9th, probably in a matter of few hours, have created a level of trauma and terror in the country that has left people helpless to the point that they don't really know whether it is even safe for them to go out of their homes to buy groceries or to send their children to school or not, because chances are it will not be safe for them to leave their homes to even conduct those most basic acts of daily life. The reports of arrests and murder and torture and other horrific modes of repression have not ended with the 2 days of mass killings in the country. They have continued. And yes, given this atmosphere, it should not be a surprise to any of us that the Iranian people are not taken to the streets to protest. But what they are doing is that they are praying to God up above, and they're praying up above to President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu to do something for them. And every day, with every passing hour that no action is taking place, they're losing hope in all three: God, Trump, and Bibi Netanyahu.
But Marjan, do they really believe, because I don't understand, and maybe there is a plan out there that we just don't know about, but that does make sense to some people, that through a standoff military intervention, in other words, without boots on the ground, there is a way to overthrow the regime. I mean, do the Iranian people, do they really think that America's going to come send soldiers into Iran, take down the supreme leader, conquer Tehran, occupy the Majlis? I mean, are these things that they actually believe are possible and are real?
I think whether or not that is possible, I think the Iranian people need to have a sense of protection from the enemy within that has power over them. They need some kind of protection. They need some form of assurance that they can have some kind of a normal, safe life without the fear of being arrested or prosecuted for random crimes, namely being a Mossad agent and cooperating with a Zionist entity, which is still the most lethal and the most common accusation that is made in Iran. So it is a sense of protection. And there's also, second, is a sense of justice. They need to know that mass murder of civilian populations is not going to be ignored in the international community as just another boys will be boys behavior, and that there will be some kind of international repercussion for such behaviors. And I'm sorry, UN, we don't have time for you to go and organize a fact-finding committee and start going out there to look for your facts when the country is literally restricting any kind of monitors from outside to come inside. And the only people who are making their way back to the country are regime apologists and certain reporters from CNN with special visas. So protection, justice, and yes, if possible, they would like there to be a dismantling of the regime so that they can have self-determination over their own people. there is not. I don't think that.
Marjan, is that possible in your view? Is it possible with the foreign intervention for something like that to happen? And if so, how do you see it happening?
So they don't want the American people to come and replace the Islamic Republic with a different form of government that is not necessarily the choice of the Iranian people. But they want the help of this government to overthrow the regime the same way that they pulled down the Iron Curtain and they wanted the communist regime to be abolished. So that is an expectation, and I think that's fair. The Iranian people will be able to designate their own government, and I can assure you that these are the people who understand democracy and the need for a free and representative society more than any other population, beside Israel in the Middle East.
So beyond the fact that people are obviously scared and there is a genuine threat to their lives of what could happen, like you said, if they go out to the supermarket or they go out to work or they go out to school, in general, can you give us a little insight into the breakdown of who are the people in Iran? Because you always get like mixed reports, right? People talk about how it's all the young people who want to come out. I mean, we know that in these protests, for example, they started different than in the past, not just at the university campuses, but also in the bazaar. There were older people, not just the young ones. It wasn't just the liberals and the progressives of Iran, but it was also some of the reformists and the more conservative circles. How strong is the pro-regime population in the country? How big is it? What percentage? How many people?
I was actually looking at some stats before joining this conversation today. And as of 2024, survey institution based in the Netherlands named Gaman, they did an attitudinal survey, and thinking that the respondents are somewhat concerned about the government looking over their answers, and they are trying to respond more favorably to the government than otherwise they would in a fully safe methodology. Although I really like Gaman and I really like the way they conduct their surveys, I still think that there are people who respond who are trying to be conservative and they don't want to get into an...
It's not free and they can't just say whatever they want. But with that caveat, yeah.
With that caveat, only 20% of the population said that they like the regime as it is. Wow. And when they were asking about the popularity of figures in the country, I need to go back and because I could not even believe my eyes. But you can show the screenshot of it later for your audience. But they named a number of political and public figures, including Khamenei, including Zarif, Ahmadinejad, exiled and diaspora figures like the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, athletes, rappers like Tomac Salehi, who was arrested numerous times because of his creative lyrics and anti-regime sentiments, and from all of this, and also political prisoners. Most of the people received single-digit favorability. Ali Khamenei there was a straight line in front of Ali Khamenei's name, meaning, I mean, it was too few to count. By contrast, the same survey entity, they ranked Reza Pahlavi with over 30% popularity, and that is 2024. This is even before he started some of his most recent initiatives.
So it would be even higher, presumably, right now, right?
looking at the footage from the recent protests, the fact that they had his picture, the fact that they had his name chanted everywhere, written on walls, it shows a level of awakening and support for him, at least as a leader for the transitional phase of the regime change.
Even though
That
it's
is,
very difficult to imagine how he would come in, how he would take the reins, how this even transition would take place, unless there's some peaceful removal of the regime. But I guess that's something that maybe someone is thinking about somewhere, how that would happen.
Of course, we all want a peaceful transition of the regime from one to another. But this regime came into power with violence and bloodshed. It has lasted with violence and bloodshed. And we should not be surprised if they also leave the scene with even more violence and bloodshed. I don't think that this is going to be an easy transition. I really am anti-violence. I'm pro, my main principle is to do no harm first. But I think that we need to be clear-eyed about what it means, whether it's for the regime to stay or for it to go. There will be bloodshed no matter what.
One of the things I've been thinking about is Ali Khamenei. Interesting character, of course, has been leading Iran ruthlessly for now 36 years or so.
47.
47. Well, he.
Oh, yes, 30, yeah.
Right. He came to become the supreme leader in 89 after Khomeini. But I was thinking about him because, we look around the world and people tend to look at the Iranians as, they're isolated, they're far, maybe they're weak, they have protests. But on the other hand, Khamenei is a guy, he saw Reagan, he saw Clinton, he saw Bush, he saw Obama, he saw Trump, Biden, Trump now again. If you're Europe, forget about it. They all came and went. Even in Israel, we've had multiple different leaders in the years since. But he's always been there. And he's always been there and managed to even to some extent, be one step ahead of everyone else. Because despite all their efforts and all the sanctions and all the diplomacy and all the sabotage and the covert operations and even the kinetic war of the 12-day war of June, he's still there. And even the biggest protest, he's still there. I mean, what should we understand, or what does the West maybe not understand about Khamenei and about his hold over the country?
It's a really good question. And there have been many books written about Khamenei's persona and his method of operation. And, as someone who has been looking at these issues, and I lived under Khomeini's reign, he and his followers, believe truly that they are an extension of God, that, that the supreme leader is an extension of God, that whatever he is doing as the supreme leader is the will of God. And there is no power more important than God. There's no will more respectful and valuable than God. And by that name, his prophet, which Khamenei believes he is, Ayatollah, sign of God. He has full reign to do whatever he believes is the right thing to do. And he can sell it to this brainwashed mass of people that have been eating up the propaganda for decades and have been closed off thanks to filtering and thanks to other restrictions and very significantly engineered flow of information into the minds of the Iranian people. He has been able to convince a significant portion of the population that yes, he is a sign of God. What he does is the word of God, and he should receive obedience and approval and everything. But the reality is that Iran is a very young country in terms of age of population. It's an old country in terms of history, but in terms of age of population, it's pretty young. And young people are by nature connected on a global scale to other minds, and they're not buying this anymore. So whatever he is doing, Khamenei, in order to force his will onto the society, has been really by either force or fear, or incentives to a few who have been willing to be part of his mechanism of repression. That and that is namely IRGC. And through that, by a system of incentives and rewards, he has been able to convince other people to participate in keeping an obedient populace at his disposal in order to guide them in any way he wishes. But it's not lasting. This is, we are seeing that this is not going to last. I'm just going to add one thing. We're looking at video footage of a lot of these protesters who got killed just a few hours after they took to the streets. A lot of them were leaving behind videos, goodbye messages, because they had a sense that they would get killed if they were to go out. I don't like to make comparisons, but I know Israelis who serve in the army, and they leave messages behind before they go to serve, with full love for their country, with full belief in the sense that what they're doing is the right thing. And these young people were leaving very similar messages
because
behind.
They saw themselves going out as fighting for their country.
Absolutely. And they were saying, I may not come back. I may not come back, but I need to do this for my country. And it may be too late for me to reap the benefits of this sacrifice, but maybe the next generation will see it.
So one of the issues that's on the table right now, and it seems based on what we're seeing here in Israel at least, is that the conversation or the debate between the Israelis and the Americans centers on, okay, if there are these negotiations and there is going to be talks, what is the deal that we're looking at? What deal does Donald Trump want to get? What deal would Israel want to get? And then there's the deal maybe that the Iranian people would want to see happen, right? So it seems that there's three deals that three different constituencies would like. Trump might want a deal that's a nuclear deal and say, I did what I needed to do. I can call it a day. Israel would like to see, okay, nuclear deal, but also let's see restrictions on ballistic missile production. Let's see restrictions on the support of proxies. And maybe the Iranian people say, we don't even care about that. We want to see a deal that gets rid of this regime for us. I mean, it doesn't seem very likely that whatever deal is going to be negotiated is going to be to the satisfaction of the people who were protesting and laying down their lives on the streets of Iran.
Absolutely. The likelihood of any acceptable deal coming out of Istanbul or wherever is next to none. The irony of it is that the Qataris have representatives in these talks. The Turkish, obviously, they're hosting this. The Iranians have their representatives. America has only Kushner and Jared Kushner and Witkoff participating. And there's nobody representing the will of the Iranian people. Nobody is there to advocate for the will of the Iranian people. So absolutely, they will be shortchanged no matter what. And even if they agree to not make a deal, still, there is no one advocating on behalf of the Iranian people. Nobody knows if someone is making an arrangement that in their not making a deal, there would be a provision to protect the Iranian people. My fear is that one of the conditions that the Trump administration has put out for for the Iranian regime is that they would release all the political prisoners, or they would stop killing the political prisoners. By the way, if the Iranian regime accepts any of these provisions, then it will not be an Islamic Republic anymore. It would be something else. And I would bet that they're not going to agree to any deal that is presented by the Trump administration, whom they try to kill, but that's a different story. My prediction is that even if they come to some kind of an agreement, there is a very dark scenario where they would eliminate all of the political prisoners, and they would say there's nobody left for us to release. They are that evil. They are that vile, and there was a leaked video of a commander providing a religious explanation for why it's okay to kill mass protesters in large sums. And he was saying, you're doing the work of God. Again, an extension of Khamenei's belief of himself. You're doing the work of God as long as you're killing for the right purpose of serving God, then it's okay. But once you kill them, you don't need to kick them. You don't need to spit on them. You just kill them and move on. This is how they simplify this kind of behavior. And my guess is that they have to simplify the behavior maybe because there is some possibility of resistance to this, to engaging in this level of violence.
Marjan, do we know anything, and maybe you know and don't feel comfortable, which is also okay, but do we know anything about the Jewish community in Iran through this period? Has anything come out? Do we know how they've been coping? Or do they just keep their heads down as they've usually done over the last 47 years of the revolution, just try to keep going, stay under the radar and not make any noise, not get caught up in anything? What can we say about that?
Which has been the playbook of survival for the Jews in all of the endangered communities around the world, right? So what we saw after the 12-day war was very strong gestures of leadership from the Jewish community inside Iran. One was a very visible and vocal series of expressions of solidarity with the Islamic Republic regime and against the Zionist entity. They were very adamant and very intentional about how they demonstrated their solidarity with the Iranian government, and they, in very harsh language, they condemned the Israeli behavior, and they stood by the people of Gaza. So then, what we saw, in addition to that form of positioning, we saw a series of messages that were issued by the leadership of the community. They sent messages to the diaspora Jews saying, do not communicate with us. We don't want to communicate with you. And also they warned the members of the community that they should refrain from any communication with relatives or family members, and to also be very careful with how they behave on social media, to practice, social media hygiene, and not like posts that may seem unfavorable to the position of the government. So these were some of the most visible messages that we saw from the community. And the fact that we are not hearing that much from the community on the inside should not come as a surprise to us. But what I can tell you is that these days, after tens of thousands of people have been reported killed, or arrested or injured. All of Iranian people are vulnerable. They're all at risk, and they're all trying to be as careful as they can be to survive from one day to the next.
I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to be a Jew today in Iran and live with that fear. What's the size of the community right now? Approximately?
It's between 9 and 10,000, down from what used to be about over 70,000 before the revolution in 79.
So, Marjan, you're the founder and director of the Alliance for Rights of All Minorities, ARAM, which is an international network of activists that promotes human rights in Iran. What does the organization do? How did it even come together? And I'm curious what you do nowadays with everything, obviously, that's happening on the ground in Iran. I mean, it seems like every Iranian today, to some extent, is in need of human rights protection.
Absolutely. All Iranians right now are as vulnerable as their neighbors. And I think that this moment alone, this widespread threat and vulnerability have brought people closer to each other in a way that I don't think any other act in history could have brought them close to each other in the most natural way. They're all seeing each other as one people, and it's as heartbreaking as it is beautiful. But I started this initiative about over 12 years ago when the Obama administration, and maybe even before that, when they were speaking about the possibility of engaging in diplomatic relations with Iran prior to the JCPOA. And there was a level of enthusiasm and excitement about the reformist President Rouhani, who was going to come and bring all these changes and bring reforms and open up the country to more freedoms for everyone and more friendly attitudes with respect to the West. But as someone who had lived in Iran as a woman and as a member of the minority community, and knew that there was no difference between a reformist and a hardliner candidate, that as long as there is a system where one person rules supreme, no matter who is in charge of the day-to-day messaging to the West, the rules and the principles will remain the same, and it will be a system of repression. It will be a hierarchy of power and dominance over different levels of population. But at the time, I had an opportunity to attend some roundtables of Iranians who were engaged in a conversation preliminarily, in the Obama White House. I found myself not only as the only Jewish person present in this room of diaspora Iranians at the White House, but also as the only minority member who was not Shia, who was not Muslim, sitting around these tables for the conversation. And you and your audience know that Iran is a very diverse country. There are a variety of languages spoken in the country. Iran is the original religion of people in Iran is the Zoroastrian faith, preceding Islam and Christianity and arguably Judaism. And Iran is also the birthplace of the Baha'i faith, which is also one of the most peaceful religions in the world. But of course, Jews and Christians have also had presence in Iran that spreads for over 2 millennia, and and even within the Muslim population, there is an array of adherences to different beliefs. Not just the Shia Sunni sect, but also within the Shia faith, there are other beliefs that are not necessarily represented on the top of the religious food chain that has been established in the Islamic Republic. So I thought that there needs to be a voice that represents these minorities, and I engaged with representatives of Iranians from different backgrounds, and I found myself, just as an amateur person, connected with hubs of information from different communities reporting on their own, and this is how I've been able to remain involved and in communication with folks in the country.
One last question before I let you go, Marjan. When you're watching and obviously seeing what's happening in a very tumultuous period, and of course, I think we all hope, and I can imagine you of most people, part of the Persian or Iranian diaspora, genuinely who lived under this regime of repression, hope and pray for change. Does it give you hope, though, that we're at this moment, that maybe this will come, maybe there will be an opportunity to maybe go back and visit and see your birthplace, see the country that you grew up in, where your family comes from?
More than you know, more than you can imagine. It's a wish that I have had since the day I left Iran as a 14-year-old. I have not stopped wanting to go back. I have not stopped dreaming about it. One of my joys was actually when Google Satellite became available. So the satellite maps of it became available, and I could look at the streets and find my way around some of the neighborhoods that I used to know, and I would walk around and or use the public transportation too. And it is my dream definitely to go back to visit with my family. I hope that this day will come soon so that I can also bring my parents back, because I know that they have also not stopped dreaming about it. But I can tell you that these days, I have not had much sleep, let alone dreams. These are very wakeful and anxious times. My radio, television, whatever, YouTube live is on all the time, because I'm waiting to see what's going to happen next. And we are all waiting to see which direction President Trump will choose, whether he is going to do something with this armada of resources that he has put outside of the Iranian waters, or if he is going to make an unlikely peace or diplomatic agreement in Istanbul, which is the most unlikely place today for any kind of diplomatic resolutions to come from. So I am hoping that one of these days we will be able to sleep and dream and wake up with good news, and find the day where not only we can go back and visit this amazingly beautiful country, but also where enmity and hatred would be put away, and this sponsorship of terrorism around the world would end, and we can once again walk freely and safely without watching our backs.
Well, we'll all join you in that hope and prayer. Marjan Keypour Greenblatt, the founder and director of the Alliance for Rights of All Minorities, I want to thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode. As always, you can find us where podcasts can be found, on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, and the website of the Times of Israel. As always, please give us 5-star, share it with your friends and family, spread it around. We'd love to get more of you to hear and share what we're trying to create here and be part of our JPPI community. You can find us, as always, next week with another episode of the Jewish People's Podcast. In the meantime, have a great Shabbat, great weekend, and we'll be back with you very soon.